Thank you so much for doing this. Seriously,
You're welcome.
It's quite funny. Now, something that I've never got right ever, and before we get into it, is actually pronouncing your freaking name, bro. Hieronymous. You got to teach me 10 times, bro.
No, it's all right. Hieronymous.
It's the Ron. It's a Ron. It's the Ron. Hieronymous Bogs, right? Hieronymous. Seriously, like, dude, I was like, I can't just be calling you Bogs all the time. Hieronymous, man.
No, people call me Bogs. People call me Bogs, or whatever you're used to. This is going to be hard if you're talking to me and asking me questions as
this is what's interesting. It's like, it's the man with many hats, the man with many things, like the freaking legend in search of animal chin, Ducky, Alex Talavera, and Hieronymous Bogs, man.
Right.
Do you go by Alex at all?
Not really.
That's what I'm saying. Like, everybody just calls you Bogs or Ducky, right?
My mom will, call me Alex or whatever, but most people, since I've been doing music full time, they know me as Bogs. And people who know me before that, even some people will call me that, some old school tribies might remember Bogs because of Swamp Belly and all that.
Yeah. Almost like from the Legend of Ducky, because my story is, you remember, I heard about you before I ever met you. So you literally were, you were a legend. Even when because I think I met Richie, Ivan, and all those dudes before I met you. And I don't think I met you until we were actually in Manhattan. And then it connected. They're like, oh, dude, that's Duck Down. So I think we were somewhere at Lower East Side. And that's when the Legend of Ducky. What's that?
Back then, kind of like that. Like, you hear of a skater, there's a skater in Canarsie, his name is Kenny. And, this, that you hear about skaters, because back then there weren't too many. It was like, wow, like there's some guy down there. And where were these guys from? Jeff Pang was from up there by Borough Park, a little bit higher, what that area is called. And then, the Sunset Park skaters and the Canarsie skaters and the Queens skaters. And, so it was, I think, we all heard of each other.
Yeah.
And everyone was curious of who those, skaters were and what they could do and all that.
We are very, very, very fortunate here today at 2050 Community, our next interview series with not just a member, but longtime friend of ours, mine personally, Mr. Hieronymous Bogs, aka Ducky, aka a million different names this guy goes by. Thank you so much for making the time out from the magic world of New Mexico. Are you living now?
Yep, New Mexico. Truth or Consequences, New Mexico.
Truth or Consequence. The movie is real. We're here today, and we would love to chat it up and talk about kind of our story from skateboarding in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, to everything else in between, to where you are right now, man, with the Artist Abbey, which is a really exciting thing that you got going out over there in New Mexico. But before we started recording, I thought it was really funny. I remember hearing about you before I even met you. So I'm a kid from Canarsie, skating early 80s, and meeting a bunch of guys from Sunset Park that was skating over there, the Ivan Perez's, Steven Callas, the Richie Rojas's, that whole crew. And literally, it was like legendary Bruce Lee, Animal Chin. Have you heard Ducky? Yo, Ducky was Ducky. I'm like, yo, who's this kid Ducky? And I think it wasn't until we started skating down Lower East Side, I think it might have even been Thompson Square Park, one of those days, and you had done some trick or something. And literally, I was in Astor Place, skating over, and passing other skaters, talking about this trick this guy Ducky just did, or is it Washington Square Park? And he was like, I'm like, who is this Ducky? So then finally get to meet you. It was like amazing. And to find out, he's another Brooklyn kid, also from Sunset Park. So amazing to have you here today, man. Thank you very much for making this time. Well, first question is, which is kind of funny. A lot of people spend their whole life trying to find one thing they're passionate about, one thing they're good at, and investing time, energy, finances into that. You kind of be one of these annoying people that whatever you touch comes out of a part that is passionate from you, but also you excel in a way I'll put this on you because you don't like blowing your own horn. It's not normal. You're able to excel in almost anything you do with a level of ninja-like precision, what it seems like. And I just always wondered, like, as a kid, did you have one passion? There was one thing that you were into, not just art, but where was your roadmap beginning as the young Boggs?
I think it was art. An early memory I have is being in kindergarten and my teacher asking me what I wanted to be, and I knew I wanted to be an artist, and I said that, and she got me some art books because I had said that, so maybe that kind of like fostered me in that direction. But yeah, I think for me, it's kind of two things: a spiritual element and art, and I feel like they're kind of meshed, and so they inform each other, and I think that's helped me in terms of whatever I'm doing to find kind of like what's the base of everything that I try to do, or that things that you're drawn to, like skateboarding. Feeling passionate and feeling connected to it, and also feeling like a sense of vision and a sense of like destiny, like I'm going in that direction. I see where I want to be, and work toward going in that way.
So
and
you
just
had that
feeling
as a kid with the art.
Yeah, visual art. I did a lot of drawing.
Yeah.
And I grew up in New York in the 70s, and it was the birth of hip hop and graffiti and crews and breakdancing, and so my early art was definitely from comic books and from graffiti. And that it kind of gave me a little bit of a special job within my the people I would hang out with, because I drew, so they would want me to draw things for them, and make a piece with their name, make a cool character, b-boy with big shoes, and so that kind of helped me to keep making art as well. And then it kind of transitioned into skateboarding.
Did you have the same thing, that same sort of focus with or thought with the skateboard? Like, I want to do this and I know where I can go with this, or always just like, I'm bored, I'm in Sunset Park, I'm not a gangbanger, whatever, Gunset, Sunset. Or is it more low key about it?
Well, everyone back then was doing BMX bikes. Remember that?
I couldn't afford it. That's why I got into skating. I couldn't afford a BMX, man.
Right. And they were all doing BMX bikes. And somehow I knew about, like, there was this skateboard thing. I hadn't really seen much about it, but then someone was selling a skateboard. This skateboard was crazy. It was like plastic skateboard, like waffle. The inside was kind of meshed like cardboard, but it was made out of plastic. It was this big old skateboard. And so then my brother bought it for me. Like, he felt he was a biker, and he saw like I didn't really have anything to do. I played a lot of handball, would hang out and do art. But I was like, that skateboard, would be great in terms of like being able to like cruise around. And so I got the skateboard, and then I started doing things on the skateboard that that came out of breakdancing.
Well, like moves and tricks, man.
It's like the same thing, like, oh yeah, I can like get the board and I can go on my hands and do a little, crack a cool pose, and so I would do things like that. Like, I just I have to make up things, like something gymnastic on a skateboard. So then, I really enjoyed it, and I liked it a lot. But it took a good like year to find another skater.
A year. So you're in Sunset Park doing your own little thing when you're bored, or your brother bought you, and it took about a year. Yeah.
Took about a year to find skaters, and then when I met them, they had real skateboards, like not like my plastic skateboard with like it had like a nose guard and it had like a tail guard, So then I was like starting to learn, you know, a lot more.
Yeah.
Once I met the skaters from Team Trouble, which was the Sunset Park and the higher numbers.
Yeah.
It was the skateboarding, you know, crew.
Yeah.
Which Obed and Roger and Elliot and there were a bunch of guys in there that were really good skaters at the time, and you know, so they really helped me to learn some tricks early on.
And was Obed already sponsored? Because I remember him from back in the day.
No one was sponsored.
So nobody was sponsored at this time, yeah?
Nobody. Yeah, we would just all meet up and skate every single day, you know, and in the winter we'd skate like where the snow melted, like if there was like a square, we'd be skating there for hours. You know, just but yeah, there was no, and we were mostly in Brooklyn for a good few years, maybe 2 years, just in Brooklyn. We had never ventured out into Manhattan until we probably got some more moves down. Yeah. And then we started going to the banks. Yeah.
Do you remember that first couple of trips going down there from Sunset Park, jumping a train all the way down there, man?
Oh yeah. It was like,
you were still youngish, right? Do you remember how old that would have been? You would have been then?
I think I started skating about 14. Like I got that skateboard when I was 14. Yeah, going to the banks was a very strange feeling because you'd get on the train and you had this anticipation, like the whole entire ride. As soon as you get on the train, like, are we there yet? You know, it would feel like it took forever. And then finally getting there, and then you get out of the train station, and there'd be like here and there, like a skater, you know, coming from Brooklyn where you knew all the skaters, and they were like 5 or 6, you know. And then going to Manhattan and seeing skaters everywhere. And then the closer you got to the banks, there's like 50 kids, you know, 100. Then it's like the whole place is just covered with skaters, and they're from like New Jersey and, you know, all over the 5 boroughs. But mostly, I think at that time, it felt like it was mostly skaters from outside of New York. Yeah. In certain ways. I know that there was the old school New York, you know, it's like Soho skates people. Yeah. Which I didn't know at that time, but it seemed like a lot of people were from like Jersey and Connecticut and, you know, lots of other places.
Because that was the thing, other than the Sunset Park crew and the rest of the bigger Brooklyn guys and some of the lower Manhattan guys and even some guys from uptown. And like you said, it was the few times I went there early on, before I kind of like really got to know you, everybody was not from the city. That's why I was like, I don't understand this. Like, it took me like almost 2 hours to get from Canarsie to freaking down to the Brooklyn Bridge to then find out I'm hanging out with people from freaking Jersey and Connecticut. I'm like, what? So then we end up going to Washington Square Park, and that's where half the other guys was just chilling or whatever, or like you said, Soho Skates or Varick Street, or then I guess it started rolling to like the Skate NYC crew and all that sort of stuff. And the rest of the guys from the banks that were then from Manhattan venturing to make a public appearance or something like that. Yeah, mad times, man. And how did your art or your love for art and your talent by then start melding into the skateboard stuff? Because I remember you were doing like you said, you were doing pieces for people, but then people's grip tape started looking different, and stickers started coming around, and then you used to do all these characters, and then later on, I think was it Small Room, one of the skate companies you started doing graphics for. I didn't know if you were doing stuff pre-Small Room, but it always seemed that now you had a whole new world to do your art, which also was another thing that you loved, which also was your skateboarding, like a perfect marriage, man.
Yeah, you know, I think that, you know, being a Latino skater in Brooklyn, you know, you're always looking for like a connection with another skater. And you know, I discovered Gons in the skateboard magazines, and Gons had an art element to his, you know, to him and his work and his skating, and you know, his grip tape art and all that. So I'm not sure kind of how I transitioned into that. But I would think the drawing graphics was a natural progression, you know, and you know, in skateboarding the graphics were so important. like, if you think of like, those boards like Rob Roskop and Lucero and, Blockhead skateboards, the graphics were very like, in a way like graffiti, kind of like graffiti. So I think there was just a natural link there. So then, to see someone like Gons, who's like a skater, a Latino skater, and an artist, I think it helped give me a little bit of direction early on. I understood the link between those things, so I think that's how it happened. But I did graphics for just a few companies. I think, like, I used to skate. I think the first place I skated for was Geek Attack Skates, right? Geek Attack, and I did. Herbie was the owner of the company, and I did some graphics for him for a board, and I designed a board that I wanted, and he cut it for me and stuff. I think that was the first company I did anything with. And then I skated for Small Room after that, sponsored Am, and then like somewhere in between I did graphics. I did some of the graphics for the Shut board that has the aardvark in prison.
Yeah. That was yours, right?
That was, I did that.
I thought that was,
Yeah, the creatures that are piled up on each other.
Yeah.
Those were my characters, and then probably Eli did the graphics on it.
Yeah.
So whoever was doing the graphics for the company added some stuff on there. So I did that, and I used to do graphics for a little company called Nava Skates. They were from Boston, I think from Massachusetts. So, along that time period, I did some graphics, but not a whole lot.
I always thought it was cool that then it's just like an extension of you're into there's other opportunities to do your art with also your love of skating. It's not separate. It's just all just fit into the culture of then known as Ducky, just this mad creative artistic skateboard. You had your own lone wolf thing, but was part of the whole New York City tribe, but still had your own flair and your own style, your own, all that sort of stuff. And then, did you go to School of Visual Arts? Or what was the high school you went to? Because I know you went to Parsons later or had something.
High School of Art and Design.
Art and Design, right?
Yeah.
And you were still skating, still drawing, now in school, doing art?
Yeah, I met a few more skaters there at Art and Design. I met Kevin Kessler, which became a friend of mine. And then Peter Hun was going on design too. Yeah. So, that kind of, gave me some more experience, other skaters, and they were from Queens.
Yeah. And then you, at some point, I don't know, do you remember when you adopted the art is for folks? I've always called that your tagline, and almost as like do you call it like a manifesto of a perfect representation of if you were going to describe what your type of art was? And again, this is from an outside perspective.
Right.
Like I learned a lot about that through you, that these high affluent, high art, it's so potentially so inaccessible to the everyday person, not just financially, but conceptually, philosophically, all that sort of stuff, and locked away in these caverns of amazingness of called culture. But the majority of the people, the folks, are never able to engage or benefit from or learn from, where you were like kind of, it was about, if it's from the street, it got to stay in the street. So art has to be accessible. And not always, there's a level of accessibility. I always thought, I gravitated towards you almost philosophically, like if the everyday person can't vibe with this, then almost like what's the point of it? But do you remember, where did that come from, or when did that kind of, almost as a tagline, art is for folks, come?
Kind of like a slogan.
Yeah, exactly, man.
It's hard to say when you look back at stuff, because there's so many layers of things, and it's hard even to remember what came first.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, that idea of artists for folks, it's not only, I think, just like, it's not only dealing with the art world, but I think that just that art and creativity is like part of being human. You know, it's like, it's kind of like it's an everyday thing. It's natural. You know, that's kind of like, for me, even the bigger context of that. I think it does mean as well that art is for the common folk, and, you know, so, but it was kind of like a way to help me focus my energy in the right direction, like not get distracted. Oh, I'm making art for the folks, you know, so, and a part of that is being able to work consistently, to make it like everyday life, to make art. That's Pancho. To make art like, you know, something you do. You have breakfast, you know, check your emails, and you make some art, and then you go to work, and then at lunchtime you do some drawings, and then you go back to work, then you come home, and then you get ready for a gig, and then you go play music. You know, kind of like intertwining everyday life with the creative, you know, with a creative vision, or creative, like creative balance. I think like a balance. So, you know, there's a famous conceptual artist, Joseph Beuys, and he would say, he had a slogan. It was, thinking is form. So he was like saying that, you know, the art actually starts up here. You know, it's not just the object is form, but thinking is form.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways it's kind of similar, that idea.
Is that still a process for you? You mentioned early on about how spirituality also was kind of like an important thing, but also thinking and thought. Like, some people just do art for art, and they don't try to overly, maybe that's their kung fu. That's this, they actually are, but they try to make it look, hey, it's just whatever. Like, I just throw it on a canvas and it is, versus going into it from, I want to express something, and there's a story I'm doing, but it's visual and it's using different mediums. You use a lot of different mediums in a lot of your art.
Right. So it's more like the art encompasses the different things I'm doing. I'm not even trying to force them to relate, but, you know, whatever themes are important to me kind of drive the different forms.
Yeah.
Music, visual art, skateboarding, you know, breakdancing.
And where does it's 2021. Do your sources of inspiration change from back in the early days? Do you have, like, you know, some people are like, oh, I need to do X, Y, and Z. I get inspiration from a certain area or a certain thing, or what's your mix? What inspires you for your art? But then, and we'll talk about it in a minute, your music as well. So you're also a musician and involved with people's lives. So it's a mix. So when you go into your artist's head, even that may not, the reality of your thinking and your form, where does inspiration take its place? How?
Yeah. I think definitely my spiritual journey, you know, is in everything. And my themes, even if they're not literal themes, like right now I'm wearing a cross on my head. I don't just look at it like, oh, this cross means I'm a Christian. And, you know, I don't see those symbols as being hard and defined. Yeah. What I like to take symbols, and I like to kind of explore the symbol and see what is the variety of what it can mean.
Yeah.
Or even how can I transform that symbol to be, you know, seen differently.
Yeah.
And also I kind of see it as, you know, like people put on their, you know, back in the days, the Run DMC said, don't want nobody's name on my behind, you know, like Lee.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like, you know, people dress up and they wear logos, you know, and so I see the potential of a logo to mean more. through what I do with it or how I use it, or so I think that a logo or like an idea is a base to work from, and it shouldn't be the defining, like, oh, this is the meaning, and now I gotta make you understand that meaning.
Yeah.
I'm exploring the meaning. What does it mean to me? How is it light? How is it dark? How is it understandable? How is it not understandable? So I think in general, in all my work, it's kind of that little, I use the art to kind of help me to see things in different ways.
Yeah.
And then it's also a response to culture and what culture is doing with those symbols, or ways of communicating. So like, how do people communicate with music? How do they relate to music? So then I kind of want to explore what music is, and I want to try to express it in a slightly different direction or move it in a different direction.
Yeah.
So that someone who's experiencing the music isn't just experiencing it the same way.
Yeah.
So like, example, I would do performances and I play my instrument, and after a while I was like, there's something about this, this is, I'm in front of people and I'm playing this instrument, but it's not about the instrument.
Yeah.
And it's not just about me. It's not about them watching me. Like, we're here together. And so I would think like, whoa, how can I kind of explore that and break the boundaries there? So I started to, instead of banter between songs, I started reciting poetry. Cool. So like right now we're talking and I'm going to a poem.
Yeah.
In your light, I learn how to love. In your beauty, how to make poems. You dance inside my chest where no one sees you, but sometimes I do. And that sight becomes this art. That's a Rumi poem, Persian poet Rumi. And so I'd like incorporate a poem like that in between a song, and I won't say anything else. Go into the next song.
Yeah.
Do another poem.
Yeah.
And so, I'm kind of like saying, okay, they're going to want me to say, hey, how's everybody doing?
Yeah, typical thing, man. Yeah.
So I create a tension. I don't give them what they want. Yeah. But I make sure that what I'm saying has, I have a purpose to it. Then later on, I'll put my instrument down and walk off the stage and then talk. I'll maybe recite something off stage and then come back on and keep going. I've done something where I recite a poem as I unwind a ribbon, and then I keep reciting and I get off stage and it's a really long ribbon, and I leave the building and I go outside into the street with the ribbon, which was, it rolled up, but then eventually it goes through the crowd. Yeah. And it goes outside, and people now are turning around to look at me outside in the street. So, for me, that was a way of like saying, hey, it's not just about this. Like, let's go out there, and there's a whole world out there. It's not just, So I think that's in terms of visual art and music. And I think even in terms of community, like I'm doing the Artist Abbey Gallery, and I try to approach it in that way. How can I do things to, change what a gallery is?
Yeah. Did you start that just when you've been out in New Mexico, or were you kind of like dabbling with stuff when you were back on the East Coast?
Yeah, I think I've always had the idea of a gallery. You remember MODFA, Museum of Disembodied Folk Art, which was in the basement of my apartment. So I've always liked the idea of controlling how you put your art out, or presenting it in your own way. And so, yeah, that idea has always been with me. When we moved to Rochester, we started, there was a vineyard community space out there, and we did a lot of music performances and art shows at that space. So it's kind of, I think it's just part of my general lifestyle.
And I mean, that's a cool thing, because it speaks to a lot of that. When artists just make art and they show it, there's sometimes a miss that they're actually the art. So you talking about your story about the ribbon, the art wasn't in just your words, it was in the entire experience that you were embodying. It wasn't just the doing, it was the being, and then somehow it's participatory. And now everybody is involved with it. And it goes back to art is for folk, with the folk. So it wasn't just, here's my photo, it's up, but you're thinking the presentation, the smells, the bells, the entire thing that goes with whatever it is that you're trying to communicate, express, show, all that sort of stuff. So whether that was, like I say, a piece of work, but like I said, when you did Modify, you walked into an experience. It wasn't just, I'm in a room that had some stuff on a wall. You felt like, yo, someone put some serious time into journeying through a maze, that everything here is part of the, it's hard to even explain. I mean,
I think that's very close. You know, I love outsider art, self-taught art, and you know, because the art is coming from a person, and that person is a lot less focused on the art world.
Yeah.
And they may have just started because they dropped some paint on the floor and made a cool shape, and then they wanted to make another one, and then it kind of led them to another place, and then they just kept adding and adding. By the time they're doing that for a while, they've developed their own world, their own language.
Yeah.
And that language is a mystery to others, because it's, you know, it's coming from a very particular place, rather than like, you know, you go to Walmart and all the variations of what you're going to buy are on one shelf. And anything that's added to those shelves is going to be a slight variation of something that's accepted. You know, where an outsider artist is kind of, they may be coming from left field, you know, and you know, making work that is has a bit more mystery to it. And I enjoy that aspect in art. And when I make things, I'd rather create something that gives me that feeling. Like, I'm not sure, what does this mean? You know, this conjures up certain feelings and I'm drawn to it. So then that's how I'll work on it, rather than thinking, oh, I have an idea, it's going to look like this.
Yeah, exactly.
And it'll be when it's finished.
And that's kind of like you say, that even like you're saying with your hat with the cross, exploring what these symbols may mean or feel, or versus the black and white, the 1, 2, 3s. Here it is. It's a pre-made meal for you already. Everybody knows it, but you're like, because I remember I was trying to figure out a while ago. I can't remember how old we were, but I remember you coming to Canarsie. My mom plays guitar. She used to teach me until I realized freaking I don't need to know 3 chords to play punk. So then I destroyed any idea of ever playing guitar again. I only need 3 chords and a power chord. But she was teaching you guitar at some point, wasn't she? It was like some.
She showed me every once in a while, and I'd go over. She'd show me a chord or two. Yeah. You know.
Is that kind of where you started musically? So you had a skateboarding, you were doing art. You're like, hey, I'm gonna pick up a guitar and start doing music.
Yeah, I think I was probably writing, you know, words first.
Yeah.
You know, like poetry and stuff like that, and then I got, you know, it's just a logical progression, you know, like, oh, this could be a song, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I loved Morrissey and the Smiths, and, you know, he's a very innovative writer. So that's kind of an inspiration to me to write, you know, seeing like the world that an artist could create, you know, through language. And through how they sound, or, you know, the sounds they make.
From there, because I think we were still teenagers, maybe late teens. I can't remember exactly. It was definitely before I went to university.
It all starts to blend together.
It does. And then, like, what was the first band or like musical public experience you went to, or you started, or you were a part of from there?
Yeah, I never was into seeing bands. You know, we were early hip hop, and it was like listening to the radio pretty
No, I
much.
mean you yourself. So now you're learning to
Yeah.
play guitar. You're writing your own songs, poems. What?
Yeah, it was on, you know, an open mic.
It was it because you started doing open. I remember you started doing open mics, weren't you?
Yeah.
But you had changed your name already by then, so you already had a kind of a performer name. Like, you know, I don't think you were going as Ducky, were you?
Well, it was probably Alex and his Invisible Band was the first.
History, man.
And then it kind of evolved from there. Yeah, Alex and his Invisible Band. That was, yeah. So then I would think, oh, I'm going to perform and like I'm going to be up there, and there's no one backing me up.
Yeah, man.
But I thought, you know, if the name has band in it, then people are they're gonna see the band. You know, they're kind of like these invisible
hilarious
band. You know, so that's kind of like how I beefed myself up so I could go and perform. Because I mean, it was like terrible. Like I knew like one chord and like, you know, I didn't know how to sing, but I was trying to. I was just, you know, whatever would come out. So in a way, it was kind of like performance art. And what I did was I pushed that performance side. You know, I have never been great on an instrument, but then what I would do is I say, oh, I want to play. I can't play a guitar. I'll just play a banjo. You know, it's a little easier than a guitar. And then I'll say, you know what? I need something to put my banjo in, and so I'll build like a banjo coffin. And put wheels on it. And then when I go to perform, I'll, you know, bring the banjo up in the coffin, then open the coffin up, then start playing, you know, like it was more like performance art more than music, you know. So, but I think progressively, as I've learned as I was doing it, and it's become more music.
Cool. And so tell us a little bit about what you just recently have a release out, and also is it a collaboration with another artist or another band?
No, the album is called This Weight, and it's pretty much all my songs. It was recorded here in New Mexico, and the guy who engineered, he played a lot of instruments on it, so he'll add to my guitar, you know, maybe put a little organ in the back or do some editing with the drums, or you know. So I usually when I'm recording, I do collaborate. I don't know if you call it collaborating, but I'll have guest artists or musicians come play drums or, you know, play this or that instrument. So, but recently I've had less and less. Before my collaborations where I'd have like 20 something people on the album, or 30, or it was like crazy. And now it's become like maybe it ends up being 3 or 4 in the end. It's just simpler. And because I usually put out about an album a year.
Okay.
So it's not a lot of time, you know, when you think about it. You say like a song a month, that's writing, and then you have to record. And, you know, so, you know, I put them out pretty quick. This album, some of the songs I started writing maybe a few months before COVID hit. And so, I mean, overall, it's probably affected by some of the mood, some, you know, what's going on. My themes tend to be broad, so they're not specific. You know, I wouldn't mention COVID or anything in there. But I think, you know, art is a great, it's a sponge. And, you know, the artists, they're living life in the same culture as everyone else, and you're absorbing all that. Which then ends up coming out in your words, or, you know, and in your sounds. So, you know, the album is called This Weight. It was just the name of the song, but in this context, it has a different meaning. You know, I'm not sure which came first, if, you know, which influenced the other.
Yeah.
But I wasn't writing them with very particular themes. Another song on there is called Law and Murder. Law and Murder. So again, but it can relate to any time period, but it also relates to now. So the songs are very, they have a dark tone to them, but I find that the lyrics are not dark. It's kind of a little bit of a contrast between the words. If you look at the words alone, you get a very different picture than when they're with the music.
Yeah.
Which I like. I like that.
And that always seems to be something that follows you. It's the, I don't want to say packaging is the wrong word, but it's the combination of that. The words on their own, but add the sonics, the entire aesthetic to it. It's a whole different, you create almost an entire new universe of understanding or experience than if you were just flat words on paper. And that's always been something I appreciate. You will play with all those mediums of expression, interpretation.
Right.
Not to force, this is what it is, but to kind of like, don't read the words. Come on, like appreciate the entire aesthetic and the art and the journey within all that and the sounds. As you would some other song you read the words, it's like whatever, but there's a deeper DNA in a lot of the stuff that you do that you have to. It lends itself to seeing it in the context of everything that you as an artist are presenting it in, which is always.
Right. So I think it's the same. Like, okay, across. If I go and I walk into a church, what's going to be the response to me as a person, even though I have this cross on my head? I walk in and I'm making noise with my chains. How are people going to feel when I walk in there? Because usually things are placed next to a context that's supposed to fit it.
Yeah.
It goes together, and that makes it understandable and approachable. But once there's a little bit of contrast, then people have to think a little bit more about it. Yeah. That's why we don't like immigrants too much, because they're so different. They look similar, but they think different and they dress different and maybe they speak different. Yeah. So yeah, I really enjoy that aspect of art, that you can, what you put things next to affects how people read the information.
That's because I was a few years ago, I was in Denmark and I was doing a show, but one of the guys involved in the show with this artist. And he was kind of talking about stuff like that, where he said in his personal life, he can't stand the image of the cross because he doesn't think it actually means what it's supposed to be meaning in a way. Where for him it was a ladder. So all his artistic work were ladders, and I was like, bro, help me understand this. He's like, well, it's the perfect it's combining two different things, and it's a sense of movement. And you're here, and ideally a ladder, you want to move up heaven or wherever. And he said he just doesn't understand. He was getting almost like death threats. How dare he mess with this sacred cross? And he's like, in his own language, like, I don't call myself a Christian, but I'm a Christian, but it's a loaded word. Because he just finds how many people that consider themselves, respectful to that religion, they almost violently disagree with him trying to change. He's like, isn't it about the meaning in the story? Like the power is in the story, not the. I'm confused here. Like there's no power to this symbol. It literally is a symbol. So this whole thing, he literally was going around the world, literally making these little performance art, little ladders, and leaving them in the randomest, craziest places. But then also places where he felt that's where God needed to be, as his own little performance thing, rather than painting a cross, which you would think that might be the traditional thing to do. He's putting these little funky little ladders. But then I thought of you, but he would use whatever he could find in those areas. So if he went to Serbia or something, it was like rubble. So he was finding rubble and building these ladders out of whatever was there. And I just, again, it made me go back to you. I was like, it's the story and the meaning behind the actual image. It's not it doesn't start with the image. So, but it was funny. He was saying that people like they would consider themselves of faith were his biggest haters. Because they're like, dude, you can't mess with this symbol. Like,
Right.
It wasn't even a conversation. It's like, yeah, but we're speaking the same language. I believe the same thing. This thing, it doesn't represent really what I think the power of symbols. And is there any room to negotiate what they might look like or meaning or feeling of them?
And I think it's cool. He's finding, rubble, and then he creates this piece.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a magic. It's like a shaman who's providing something for people without a cost. It's like, and he's putting his effort, his mind, he's using discarded objects, and I think there's lots of, deep layers to that.
So much, yeah.
And I think, our cultures and societies tend not to be creative, because creativity will challenge structures, and I know why so many people hate crosses. It's such a symbol of structure and power and misused power, even hatred it could be, so I think that creativity and spirituality, that's how I see them combined, because I think in a certain way, a creative person will think out of the box, and it's not tangible, but what they're doing is not, that's spiritual too. It's something that you can't totally, you can't say what's going to happen when someone creates something and presents it and the response. And, it's kind of like, it's like an energy that affects others.
Yeah.
And, the object could affect people, but actually the doing of it or people seeing it done also affects others.
Yeah.
Like in performance, music, and
just your story with your ribbon. Like people hearing you might be feeling it. Now it's on you. Whoa, what is this guy doing? Why is he getting off the stage? Oh my God, he's in my little safe personal space. I paid my money for a show. Why are you up in my, dude, why? And now he's past, like, it's amazing to mess with all, whatever those norms or whatever you want to call those safe.
And it's such a simple thing too. It's so simple. And that's what I start to figure out. I'm like, wow, it's really simple to just break the boundary.
Yeah.
And like actually face people and then actually be more connected with people.
Yeah.
So another piece I do is I get off stage and I find a place in the room, and I have this bag I carry with me, and I go and from the bag, I pull out this blanket and lay it on the floor, and then I lay down on the floor.
Nap time.
And I wait there a while, and some people turn around in their chairs, like, oh, look what you doing? People stand up. And then I get up and I start my reciting, which is like kind of like a story. Yeah. And then I bring out all the objects from the thing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the story, I'm back laying down on the floor.
Yeah.
Still. And so that really, and it's not only that you're doing something, I'm not like, let me do something weird. I'm realizing that just getting off the stage is weird. And then when I'm on the floor, people have to get up. They have to look past someone's head. If they can't hear me, they may want to walk closer to where I'm at.
Yeah.
And then the whole dynamic has changed, and they're like experiencing something that is, it may be the same as a song lyric. Like what's encapsulated in that little performance is the same idea that could be in a song. And so I've had people say, that thing you did on the floor, that was the best thing that, that I experienced today, and which is powerful. It's hard for that to happen, in a structure that is constantly, what to expect.
Exactly. Yeah. But it also challenges, and you've done this brilliantly over the years, even from the open mics, it makes it participatory. It's not a spectator. And that theme in spirituality and faith, like you need to get involved, even if it's uncomfortable. You
Right.
need to deal with this now. The artist is off the stage in your personal space, interacting with you. Like, what the hell's going on? I don't know what's happening. Kind of like stand-up comedians, make me laugh. I'm paid my money, make me. And when he starts talking to you, like, oh, yo, dude, like, yo, no, what are you doing, man? Like, there needs to be a separation. And is it? Were you like, no, come in. We are now. It's an us thing. We are in this situation for this moment, time stamped. And I'm about to, let's explore this versus this Netflix. I'm just watching robotically over and over. And, oh, it's Friday night. We're going to do this. Yeah, amazing, man. Really.
And I think there's always room for craft, for your craft and being good at what you do and having, knowing how to work your technology and learning how to work a crowd from a stage is not easy. No. It's a very difficult job. So I don't mean it when, I do what I do because that's where I feel called to go. And my strength is not in the technical aspect. My strength is in like the art part of it. So I just kind of go with the part that's my strength and refine that part, and I think it's like, so, what kind of drew me to like guns, to go back to skateboarding.
That's where it begins, man.
How he dressed, what his boards look like, the tricks that he did all express a certain kind of creativity, which then is full blown in his art, the art that he makes now. So, and it's inspirational. Like that was an inspiration. He took the chance to try something or to do something differently, which then inspires someone else to take the chance as well. So it's a wonderful, I think, whatever the form is, creativity is like the place to kind of grow from and progress.
And now you have, which is a great segue, and with a bit of time that we have left, the artist Abbey. Would love to hear a bit more about what that is, what you got going on over there, man, in New Mexico.
So basically, it's a building that's right on the main street of Truth or Consequences. It used to be a pawn shop. They had, jewelry and guns and things, and everything that they were selling here is very dusty and very dark in here for a long time. And so there are some galleries in town, a place called Desert Archaic and Rio Bravo Gallery in town, and that do a little bit more contemporary. So I kind of envision Artist Abbey as a place that focuses more on the artist than on the people who come or who might buy art here. And I try to focus my attention on artists that are doing things that are, that seem really particular to them. Especially artists who are making a lot of work. Like that's kind of what draws me, like someone who's invested in working regularly and is doing something that may not be pretty. So like my friend here, Robert Moore, the painting that's behind me, that's painting. And Robert is an artist from around Dallas, Texas, who moved here. And he is involved in like performance art and painting and teaching, because he was an art teacher as well for a while. And he works regularly often. And a lot of the work is on the edge of not being very pretty. And all the work is different, but he works consistently. So I'm always trying to find ways to get Robert involved. He does these mandalas on the street in chalk. That's part of some of his daily ritual. Like he'll get up in the morning, he'll go and do these mandalas, then go home and then work on paintings. And so then, early on with the gallery, I said, oh, do you want to make a sign for us, a mandala sign that people would see going? It's a two-way street here right on the main street. And so he made two big signs. and we stuck them on our signpost that we had outside. It was humongous. I've taken the whole thing down. It was an old sign. And so from either side, you had this big mandala that wasn't, it wasn't like, this is McDonald's or Walmart, so, so then I'll ask him to do that. We had a show in here where we called it 6 feet, 6 foot on center. And we separated all the art to be 6 feet apart. And then he drew a mandala in front of each piece around the whole gallery to kind of like show the thing. So, and we've done a few collaborations. Like we did a piece that was from the outside. It had a projection of him drawing his mandalas on a big screen in front of the building. And then if you went through the screen and looked inside, he was inside of this little hut shape.
Wow.
And he was drawing one of his mandalas in there.
Yeah.
And so then, it got people to kind of look at the screen, but then to actually see a person making the art, trying to connect the process, the art process with like a product. Yeah. Shiny screen with nice light. And then you go inside and it's dark and he's drawing his mandalas in there. So I try to like create situations where I can collaborate where I can help an artist put their work out.
Yeah.
And I'm collaborating because I allow the space to do the work in. I'm not really, it's not like I'm doing the work with them, but I see that as the collaboration. Like, what do you want to do? Okay, let's do it. What can I provide? Here, you have a space. Yeah. Here, you have a corner. So I see it as a space to support artists in their work.
And do you also use it for your own stuff as well?
My work is in here because I make a lot of work and I have to put it out. So I put it around the gallery. I try not to do too much Bogs stuff in terms of, performing and things like that. It's really to support other artists,
cool.
I like being I like to be in a crowd that doesn't know me. That's what I prefer to do art.
Yeah.
Even visual art, it's very different when you know someone and you see their work. Yeah. It's harder to engage with the work. So, I show work here, but I think it's really more for the community aspect that it creates and to support artists and to support art, just the sense of like, we love art. We're creative beings. Like, let's do it. And let's, especially not make it so regimental. Like this month we're doing this. And then next month we're doing that. I kind of try to leave space. I think there's room for that. And I love high art. I love museums. I love all sorts of galleries. But there's very few places that allow for that chance encounter and to the opportunity to do something that maybe doesn't work and not considered great. Yeah. Or that it's like open mic where I wouldn't have had a chance to develop my art if there weren't open mics.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
And that's kind of like what I see Artist Abbey as, is a place for that kind of opportunity.
That's brilliant, man. Yeah. So if people want to hear your stuff, see your stuff, what's the best way in this world of high technology, social media, people get in contact with you or hear your stuff, man?
Yep. Very simple. You could go to HIERONYMUS Bogs. I'm emphasizing Hieronymous so that you get a sense of
Hieronymous Bogs.
Hieronymous Bogs. HIERONYMUSBogs.com, and that's my website, and it mentions Artist Abbey in there.
Yeah, cool.
It's kind of the process of being developed, and there'll be more Artist Abbey information.
Okay.
So they're there, and then that'll lead you to Bandcamp, or you can find my music on any digital media, iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff.
All that fandangled things.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll put up with the interview, like your links and the website. So if people definitely want to migrate to your way, they'll know how to get to you directly, man.
Yeah.
Man. So the current releases, This Weight, that's the name.
Yep.
They can get it out. It's on Bandcamp currently, but across all the social digital media platforms, if you want to do it that way. Hit your website, learn about artist Abbey and everything else, man. And at some point, man, you gotta like, it may have been documented away, but kind of like go through all your old skate art, man, all the stuff you've done, and like somehow put the archives and put that out again, man. Because it's amazing, all these artists and old dudes from before us doing the graph. Every once in a while, they put their art books out and stuff like that, or boards, like, you know, entire companies putting out their entire art. But I'm like, yo,
it's nice.
Pre-Bogs, the guy named Ducky, there was like significant freaking art movements based on what you were doing. And obviously you had Gongs on that side doing his thing in terms of the characters and just messing with a bunch of stuff, man. I was like, yo, it'd be dope to get a little coffee table situation book with all your stuff, man, you've done throughout freaking decades, bro. Like, that's mental note. We gotta figure out a little project there for that.
I'm sorry about Poncho.
Oh, Poncho's cool, man. Poncho.
He's guarding me because someone's walking by the front of the gallery.
But yo, man, I appreciate your time and carving out all this and kicking back some stories, man. Yeah, we'll do this again and maybe like, journey through some other random stories, skating at 2 a.m. on the east side. And
I want to do some skating too. I might do some video footage and go to the skate park and do some skating.
That would be crazy, bro.
Still skate every now and then.
Are there places down there to skate?
Yeah, well, we have a small skate park that you know provides way more than we had in Brooklyn on the street. You know, quarter pipes and a little half pipe and a little handrail and stuff. It's cool.
We might have to do an OG tour, man. Brooklyn and beyond. Where are they now, man? Very, very
nice.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time again, man.
Thank you.
And Poncho, keeping things animalistic in the corner. Cool, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, brother.
And survive the COVID and all that, man.